He followed me and my kids with a camera.
I am a youngish girl living in Southern California along the coast, and every day I usually take my 2 kids for a 3-mile walk along the beach and back, sometimes making a detour to get coffee. This was a moderately windy day and my dress was kind of fluttering all around, so about a mile into our walk we decided to take a right and cross back to head a couple blocks inland to grab an iced coffee. As I am walking across the street with my kids, both toddlers, one in a stroller and one walking, an older lady comes from behind me and says, "Do not look right now, just keep crossing the street, but I want you to know there is a man following you and taking photos of you, and has been for at least a half-mile along. He's been driving about 2 miles per hour behind you as you walk." At first I thought it must be some kind of mistake, or that maybe the lady was crazy or something. There's plenty of young girls who jog up and down my street, in sports bras and underwear basically, so why would anyone bother following me, a mom with 2 kids, on a stroll, in broad daylight? We cross and continue walking for a second up the street and can't help but to look and try to see if this lady is losing her mind, or if she's right. And sure enough, a middle-aged bald man in a tiny little black smart car has now turned the same corner as us and is driving, like she said, about 2 miles per hour behind me, with a telescope lens, the kind you see at sporting events, pointed directly at me and my kids. Instant adrenaline rush. I looked him dead in the eyes and he moved the camera so I could see his face and looked right at me. Then moved his head back behind the small piece of frame that holds the window so his face was hidden, and continues to point the camera directly at me, presumably taking photos of me, or even worse, my small children. I wanted to take a picture of his car, but this is the one day I left my phone at home to charge. I rush the kids into a small coffee shop on the corner and the lady tells me to go inside and call someone for help. While she waits and makes sure he is gone, we leave. I immediately called my husband on the coffee shop's phone and started crying. Not sure why I was so flushed with emotions, but all I can say is I felt so violated and scared as heck that someone wanted to hurt my kids, or me. He was stuck at work 20 miles away, so I kept trying other friends to come help me. Trying to remember people's numbers when you need them is so hard in this day and age, with everything one click away. That lady, who I am so grateful for, waited 15 minutes outside the shop while the guy just sat in his car waiting for me to leave. She stared right at him and he didn't move for all that time. That part really freaks me out because it was so obvious that he knew we knew. He was still there waiting. He was so brazen, he didn't even care. After the 15-minute period, he did not leave, and I was able to get a hold of my dad to come pick us up and drive around for a while in case he was somehow following us and would see where I lived, which was just 2 blocks south. I called the police to make a report, and the lady who answered the non-emergency line kind of brushed me off because I didn't have a license plate number, so I have no idea if they ever even followed up on it. 2 lessons I learned from that day. I don't ever leave the house with my kids without a charged phone, and I am so much more aware of my surroundings now. To think he followed me for that long and I didn't notice, and it took so long for anyone to tell me, I felt so dumb. So, creepy guy in the smart car, following me and my kids, taking photos of us. Let's not meet ever again.
Creep in my yard.
Okay, so I've posted before about my experience of a guy following me home in his car. And there were some skeptics, which is completely understandable considering that I couldn't share the proof of the event that I had collected for legal and privacy reasons. That aside, I would like to assure you that the previous story and the story to come are both true. This happened to me 3 days ago. So I was home alone. My mom was staying at her friend's place for a Game of Thrones marathon, and her friend lives 40 minutes away. And it was a Saturday, which is my junk food night, so I ordered a Domino's pizza at roughly 7:30 p.m. I am quite paranoid as a result of previous events, so I made sure to lock the back door, patio door, and the front door as soon as my mom left, which was at 6 p.m. The Domino's tracker said that the pizza was an hour away, which frustrated me, but it's pizza, so it's worth it. Anywho, I was sitting on the couch in my lounge room, watching Shawshank Redemption for the 100th time, when I heard a crunching sound from outside the window. Now I have to mention that my lounge room is at the front of my house, and the couch that I was sitting on was right next to the front window that faces my front yard. The curtains were drawn. It was a very distinct crunching sound, like someone was stomping on a pile of saltine crackers. I peeked outside, and this guy was just pacing back and forth on the pebbles directly outside the window. It shocked me so much that I said fuck rather loudly and let go of the curtain so that it once again covered the window. I guess the guy must have heard because I heard a tap 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 on my window not 5 seconds later. I stayed silent, not knowing what to do. I contemplated calling the cops, but thought I might be wasting their time as I didn't know if pacing on someone's lawn was considered illegal. I decided to ignore it and pretend that nothing was happening. But I heard a smashing sound and quickly looked out the window to see that the guy had tripped over my mother's ceramic angel that had been placed near a patch of flowers. And yes, it broke. He was on the ground and he looked up at me. I didn't see his face, I only saw some curly blonde hair. I quickly closed the curtains, just then realizing that he'd seen me too. I heard him saying something, but the volume of the TV was too high, so out of curiosity I turned it down. It turns out that he was just saying, "Hey, pretty lady," over and over again. I heard a car pull up the driveway and some talking. Then the doorbell rang. I ran up and looked through the peephole. I completely forgot that I had ordered pizza. I opened the door for the pizza delivery man and greeted him, glad to see a comforting face. As he handed me the pizza, he said, "I would have just given it to your boyfriend, but he just said that he didn't have the money on him and that his girlfriend was inside and she would pay. I'm assuming that's you?" I'm pretty sure my jaw dropped. I hurriedly explained to the pizza guy that I didn't have a boyfriend and that it was just some creep in my yard. I asked him to look and see if the guy was still there, and he said he wasn't. I had paid for my pizza and the pizza guy left, but not before telling me to make sure my door was locked. Nothing happened after that point, but I will update if anything ever happens again. So thank you to the pizza man for scaring off the creep in my yard. And to the creep himself, let's not meet.
Almost kidnapped while walking my dog.
So this happened when I was about 9 or 10. I was walking my dog and looking for some wood, which sounds weird, but I wanted to build a tree house. My dad didn't want to buy the wood, so he sent me to look for some, and I was a gullible child. At the end of my street, I spot a house with some planks of wood next to the garbage can, getting rid of them, obviously. They're not that big, and there's 3 of them, but I was able to get a hold of them and my dog's leash. So I'm still walking home. It's been about 5 minutes, and I'm pretty content with my find. I'm about 3 houses away from mine. Suddenly I see a red, kind of rusty truck turn down my street. I'm not scared at this point because, cars on the street are normal after all. But he stopped right next to me. That wood looks heavy. Why don't I give you a ride home? Now I'm scared. I replied nicely and told him I'm good, but he insists. I keep walking, but he's clearly not giving up. He puts his car in reverse and keeps following me, insisting to give me a ride home. This continues for about 3 minutes, the longest 3 minutes of my life. He even tried opening his door and whistling at my dog, as if he'd just suddenly jump in. He even asked what his name was and tried to call him into the car after I told him. He's a sweet-looking dog, so he's clearly not intimidated by him. At this point, I've walked past my house, and we're close to the end of the road. Out of nowhere, he just puts it in drive and peels off. I walked around for another 10 minutes just to make sure he doesn't know where I live. So, guy with the weird rusty truck, let's not meet.